Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are reading the Meno. Okay, we are at a significant point in the text. We're just over halfway through, so maybe there has been a change because we are halfway through the text. So we can look for that. One of the changes is Socrates has seemingly given up on teaching the dialectic to help Meno understand what education is, how to understand anything. Well, you've got to use a dialectic to bring it to intellectually be able to explain the significant nature, functioning, divisions, and conclusions about anything. So understanding what's needed for understanding the art of the dialectic. To give a definition, well, that's the first category of the dialectic, so we can't even define virtue. Also, it's the activity which allows us to direct our attention to ideas that are non-physical, so we're not being distracted by physical, everyday world, practical things like earning billionaires more billions so they can play out their pathologos with more impunity. No, we are focused on ideas that are non-physical, and we're using ideas to describe them. Why? Because when we are trying to understand and define things, we aren't pointing to physical examples. We don't create a list. So when Meno was asked what is virtue, he gave a list of things that he liked. I like beating up on people weaker than me, says Meno. He agrees in slavery. He agrees in harming enemies. So very problematic idea of what is excellence and virtue, but also terrible way of defining anything. A list of things you like. Not very thoughtful. So the dialectic needed for understanding, for definition. It's the activity, as we were saying, that directs us to these non-physical things with and maintains our focus on it with a kind of openness and wonder and curiosity, which are formally the conditions for meditation. So we could say it's also the spiritual activity. And Socrates pointed out how much of a tragedy it was that he left his education without crossing that threshold, having the spiritual experience. It's also how to lead a conversation, how to stick to following the logos and asking and together following the questions of the logos without distractions, without getting into ad hominem, all of the debate bro crap, everything you've ever heard from a news reporter, a politician, HR department, that kind of misuse of language to distract us from actual understanding, growth, and solving problems. How to avoid those, he calls them philonikos. Boo for them. Boo. Boo. Philonikos, people who love fighting. Or heuristic, people who use words just to manipulate, cause conflict, defend their own stupid beliefs. Right, we're not using language that way. We use language specifically to generate a curiosity about the nature of self and reality, aporia, puzzlement, realizing you don't have all the answers in the beliefs that you grew up with. We're using language to become curious about these questions, but also how to approach answering those questions. How do we answer the questions? What is the self? Why are we here? What's our purpose? How do we fulfill it? And ultimately, what is our excellence? What is virtue itself? Oh, and second, and after that, can we teach virtue? Can we help others reach whatever level of virtue we have ourselves reached? That's how we are supposed to be using language. Not to try to derail that whole process and keep us in our problems, keep us stagnated, keep us doing things that are the opposite of excellence. People who want that, we call them debate bros. We can call them materialists because they only think the material world exists, and they use things to dismiss language. Our language is just a byproduct of being human, or it's just a man-made thing. There aren't actually ideas that exist that we access through language. So of course, those sorts of people don't know how to communicate. Well, obviously they don't know the truth, but also how to use language to communicate that which is true and beneficial, that which guides us along the path of logos and language. Understanding, definition, spirituality, communication in a good way. These are all things that require the art of the dialectic, which we are learning together on this channel. So good for you who is watching. And I hope you're hearing these sound effects. I have sound effects that are supposed to be coming through.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
Like Joe Rogan saying, I don't want to eat a monkey, but they haven't been coming through lately. So hopefully I fixed that, and I apologize to the last couple of weeks. People who've watched the podcast the last couple of weeks. Sans hilarious drops like this one. I only have one joke drop, really. Oh, you hear them? Oh, good.
I don't want to eat a monkey.
They haven't been going up on YouTube for some reason. I don't know why. So, these are all things that require the art of the dialectic, which we are all learning together. One other element, so we've got 4 outlined already. Or 4, how many categories of the dialectic are there? There are 4. Does that mean that these things that Socrates has been pointing to us, he is wanting us to do a dialectic on them? If dialectic is the system of understanding, and Socrates is saying, hey, you better understand the dialectic for all those reasons, could we ourselves realize there's a puzzle here, a question for us to solve, which is doing a dialectic on the dialectic? Well, we have 4 categories that we've just mentioned. Are they positive reasons why we need to be doing the dialectic? Can you use that to do your own? If you do, good for you. Your reward will be a dance from my chicken and my flamingo, as well as all those other rewards, to be able to think better, understand better, to be able to apply that clearer thinking and understanding to free yourself from problems, walking the path of personal development, opening yourself up to actual experiences of the truth of being, truth of justice, truth of beauty, being able to integrate that experience because you've reached it through the dialectic, through the process of understanding, which is maybe worth doing. And if it's a way of being that is based on the paradigm that is eternal outside of space and time, you might be learning something that actually will benefit not just you in this life, but your soul's journey. So therefore, the thing most worth doing while we're here. And you'll probably be able to communicate your insights and your wonder and your curiosity in a way that can actually be fun to follow and easier to follow than someone without the dialectic. So you get all those, but you also get a dance. See? Dancing, they're dancing. And we need music. No. There you go. I love this song. See? And please share your work, if you like, your dialectic on the dialectic in the comment section or on Discord. And I'll drink to that. Now, there is one other category that we might be able to recognize, which is interesting because there are 4 categories of the dialectic, as there are 4 hypotheses of Parmenides that are doubled, because remember, whatever you do on the one side of the dialectic, you got to do it for its negation. If the dialectic exists, what follows? But if it doesn't exist, so 8 hypotheses of Parmenides, 4 times 2. But there's a first hypothesis. There's a 5th member of the group for our skill tree of 5s of the question, or maybe even the causes that allow for us to even begin the dialectic. Similarly, there's one other category that we can add to the significance of the dialectic and why we should be doing it. mastership, leadership. It's not just following the logos, there is someone who is doing the following, meaning there's someone who is doing the leading. In a dialectic, it's not taking turns to give speeches like a debate or a political rally or some bullshit like that. No. There's someone leading who's asking the questions, hopefully someone like Socrates with the art, or people on the journey who you find on this channel maybe. They ask the questions, you come together in the answer, you agree on the answer, and then you use that answer to build to the next question. It's a path, it's a journey. It's not, this is my belief, I already believe it, that's it. Stagnant, you're not going to learn anything. You're an idiot. Those people who are like that meme, I believe in sexism, prove me wrong. Normally they're people tied to a belief. So Republicans, religious people, sexist people, racist people, because they don't care about reason. They don't believe in reason. Their value, their excellence is, I'm a member of this team. It doesn't matter what's right and wrong. In fact, my job is to make everything right turn out to be something caused by my team. Everything wrong, it's the other team. Basic in-group, out-group mentality. Fourth hypothesis, by the way, thinking. Pathologos thinking. You're being an idiot. Stop it. How about drop being tied to distorted images of unity and actually find unity? And if you are based on a group that isn't based on understanding and benefit, then you're a dog. Literally, the insult for that sort of person is dog. You are loyal to something without reasoned reflection. You want to be, that's the German problem, right, with Hitler. Loyal without reflective understanding of whether or not you're being loyal to someone rational and good. By the way, what's the height of reason and good? The logos. Who should be ruling? That's where we are in the text, right? Understanding, definition, spiritual experience, integration of that spiritual experience for your development of a soul, and to be able to use it in dialogue to function and benefit yourself and others, as well as mastership. Who is leading? We've been talking about the pathologos over in our midwifery podcast, and how that's who is leading the soul, leading the life. The person in charge of all human beings is their pathologos. Like it or not, that makes us sleepwalkers and irrational and immature. Not always, of course, but as it is the thing that will guide your life, especially if it's something most meaningful or something really beautiful, or you're trying to be your best. That's when it comes out strongest. But in other words, there are gaps where we can do this and free ourselves from the pathologos. But the point is, that's who's in charge. So when we say philosophy is the best game, we're also saying it's the only game in town, because you're never not doing it. You're never not led. And you're never not led through a dialectic. The question is, do you allow the most pernicious, from midwifery text, the most pernicious, the most sinister, the most zombifying and poisoning thing be in charge of your soul? Equally so, Hitler in charge of Germany, Trump, the worst person in charge of America, Elon Musk. Right, we see the fact that we haven't woken up to this and become more mature and reawakening philosophy plays out politically as well. So, as an additional benefit of the development of your soul, you're able to understand what's happening politically. Oh yeah, it's the same thing. Sleepwalkers or zombies. Or do you want to become a master of your own destiny? Master of your... So that's not right. So the word was You are able to play an active part in reaching your destiny that you otherwise weren't able to do, because the Pathologos is in charge, and the Pathologos can only remain in charge so long as you are not pursuing the Logos, and you can't reach your self-destiny. It keeps you a slave to the worst kinds of people, capitalism, but also the worst kind of leader in your soul, that which is a false belief about yourself and reality that says the opposite of the truth. That you are inadequate when you are not. You are the most divine, the most noble, and dialectic will help us to recognize that and see it for ourselves. And also, reality isn't bad or irrational. It is mind itself, which is, and it's not cruel and cold to you. It communicates to you with the best possible care that we call providence, and that happens through the Logos that you can only access if, once again folks, you apply the dialectic. Every thought, feeling, activity, choice of goals, dream you have are all messages that are the most beneficial about how to free yourself from your Pathologos enslavement to follow the Logos. So who's leading now? The Logos, it seems. To reach the true nature, discover, remember the true nature of reality. And if there's something beyond even the remembering of reality, recognize, maybe, can we use that word? Discover, realize the nature of self beyond even ultimate reality. That's the journey that we are supposed to walk, so long as the zombie virus isn't in charge of our dialectic. So what? Also, that's where we are in the text. We're halfway through. Socrates has made all these claims to us, if not to Meno. Like, there's a question, is Socrates really communicating to you? Anyway, he's made all these points and Meno still isn't getting it. In fact, Meno got mad that he realized he didn't know. Socrates said, oh, by the way, it's okay to not know. Let me show you. And he showed him with the slave boy. He's a slave boy learning. And to learn, you have to realize you don't know. Even after all that, Meno is insisting he still should be in charge. The person who can't do any of those things and who has shown that his idea of virtue and excellence is terrible. Objectively freaking terrible. It's got everything in there. Sexism, racism, I guess, harming your enemies, violence, oppression, tyranny. Women can't leave their house. Sexism there. Slavery's okay. Throw a bit of slavery in there. Not uncommon from people's views today or leaders' views today, but still terrible. Shouldn't be in charge. He is insisting to be in charge of the conversation. Socrates said, okay, I'll let you be in charge. Let's see. Okay, let's go back to your question. My point is, before we ask whether or not virtue can be taught, what is virtue? And you're saying, no, I want to ask my question. All right, I'll let you be in charge. So the question is virtue teachable? Well, and we've just realized through my dialectic that I was a master of, that I was leading, that our soul is immortal. All learning is essentially remembering. And what we remember is the knowable experience, being itself. Mind knows mind. That's the knowing. That's the nous. So if virtue is teachable, it has to be of the kind of things that can be remembered, of the kind of things that can be known. Is virtue in that list? So once again, we're back to the same question Socrates was trying to ask from the beginning, was asking from the beginning. What is virtue? Is it an object of knowledge? Is it in being? Now, virtue means your most excellent or good. So good is virtue. Virtue and good are tied together. That's what it means. Your highest excellence or your highest good. So our question is, are there any things that are good the highest good, excellence, that are not within that class of knowable things? It's not within the aspects of being, the things that can be known. Is there something that can't be known but is also good? Because if virtue is good, it could be there and therefore not learnable. Doesn't really seem to make sense that something can exist in the realm of being and be the model of the good, the principle of the good. If you want to be excellence, you need to be using that as your model, because it's not good as a descriptor to a physical thing. You're a good chicken. No. It's good. It's goodness itself. So if that's the paradigm of truth, being, justice, we've already said one of the qualities of it is justice. But when we were saying that, we said justice, courage, all of the individual virtues are aspects of being and therefore knowable. So what we are practicing with discipline, it would mean that once we cross this threshold into being, hopefully, maybe, possibly, rationally speaking, it can be a virtue that is obvious because you've seen it itself. It's not something you do through understanding and practice and discipline, which is how we're reading. We're doing our best to understand the text, apply the dialectic as often as we can, but also go out and live this way. Do it all the time. That's justice. But if it's one of the aspects of being, the culmination of that activity is you meeting justice itself. Oh, hey, okay, now I've got you. Now we're buddies now. Oh, because it's my mind, it's an aspect of my own pure, eternal nature, the soul that is immortal. Oh, it could be yours. Now, if these are all parts of justice, remember Meno said, you know what's virtue? Sorry, these are all parts of virtue. When Meno was asked what virtue is, eventually he said, doing things with justice and doing things with courage. And Socrates says, no, these are the specific virtues: courage, justice, temperance, wisdom. He didn't say wisdom, by the way. But he did talk about other things anyway, these individual virtues that we learn about, yes, they have an existence in being, but it's not the whole. To say, virtue is doing things with justice is like saying virtue is doing something with a part of virtue. It doesn't make sense. How do you play soccer? You do things while playing soccer. What? You've just described, it's kicking the ball in a soccer way. You've just described a part of soccer. You haven't told me how to play. Similarly, we have been wondering if all of the parts of virtue are aspects of being, what is virtue as a whole, and how can you apprehend it? Must it be from a level of being or a level of reality beyond even being itself, so you can grasp it as a whole? In a similar way, Socrates is able to grasp the whole of beliefs and opinions from the realm of being, from having an understanding and experience of the realm of being. In other words, you can see as a whole problems of levels below you, and you can function as a master below you. Just like a master mechanic understands the car as a whole, but when he gets a rookie come in, I recognize, you think it goes there. I know that opinion. You have this belief. I can recognize this. Let me direct you from my level of mastery. So what? So we have been wondering if there is a level beyond being. And our question is virtue a good in the realm of being that is knowable? Or is there another object in the realm of being that isn't knowable but is also good? Virtue could be that. Doesn't really make sense, because the nature of being is it's ousia. There is nothing outside it. It's a unity. But what if there was a good not in that realm but beyond that realm, which isn't something known through knowledge? isn't something learned through remembering, because that fits in with our idea of virtue as a whole. And can we call, just because we don't have any other working definitions of this word, can we call that phronesis? Because Socrates is saying, hey, phronesis, even when you reach being, that's not good in and of itself. How you use your understanding and experience and initiation into the realm of being, it can either be for good or bad. And if you are going to use it for good, you are going to use it to reach phronesis, the mysterious word we've been puzzling about this whole channel. Ever since the beginning of this podcast, we've been wondering, what the heck is phronesis? And how does it relate to the self beyond being? The one above all, to use Marvel Rivals language, which is a video game that I am going to master. It's on my list of things to do. So, phronesis. Why? Thumbs up. Well, our question is guidance. Who should be leading? Not just the conversation, not just any dialectic, but our soul, our lives, every single moment. What should be leading us? Something is. It's either going to be influenced through marketing, education, and ultimately your pathologos, making you a cog within the capitalist machine or Christian machine or Muslim machine or whatever household you grew up in. You're either going to be a slave or a zombie to that. Or if not, what are you going to replace it with? And let's finish this introduction. Let's do this as an introduction. And is it phronesis? Because Socrates is saying, hey, even being isn't enough. True benefit is from phronesis. If that's the case, and by the way, this ability to actually do the true benefit to oneself and others from the state of phronesis is tied to virtue, because if virtue is the most good functions most beneficially. So the idea of benefit is tied to good, is tied to virtue. So what? Well, benefit is tied to phronesis. So from virtue to good to benefit to phronesis. Therefore, is virtue the same as the state of being of self, the virtue that isn't put in by discipline and then maybe awakened in being, but is beyond all of that, more causal than all that. And in the Phaedo, we read Socrates say, hey, by the way, all those other virtues are traded in like money for the ultimate virtue. Without that, these other virtues aren't worth anything. Only to reach phronesis and trade in for phronesis, which is a virtue which is innate and doesn't lose its power. A state of being of self, we read in the Phaedo. So, is that virtue, that state of being of self, beyond even experience, beyond even the highest experience, or the experience of learning or remembering what the eternal nature of our soul knows but has temporarily forgotten? What is that beyond even that remembering of reality itself? Because that should be in charge, maybe. It has to be part of virtue. Is it the whole of virtue, or is it a part of virtue? It has to be tied in. That's where we are in the text. As Socrates apparently gave away mastership and leadership of the conversation, but maybe not really. Oh, and speaking of who's in charge of the conversation, we have our third, or it's Socrates, Meno, and his slave who did the math. Now we have a fourth person entering the scene, Anytos. Who the heck is Anytos? And is he going to take charge? And if the theme of where we are in the text holds, can we predict that maybe Anytos is even worse than Meno and shouldn't even worse at being in charge? And perhaps he will insist that he should take charge of this conversation. As another demonstration of the negative, what do we do when we see a demonstration of the negative? We think, oh, maybe Socrates is giving us a puzzle to express these negatives within the dialectic 4 parts, but also fill in the opposite. What would the positive be that isn't in the book? And can I be that book, or write that book, or live that book, really? So is Anytos going to come over and come in and take charge, take over? The irony being that these people, I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, the people who most insist in doing that are usually the people least who should be there, which is why any politician who wants to be a politician shouldn't be a politician. Because of that strange rule. It isn't strange if you understand it. So, mastership of the dialectic, of the conversation in the book, and of our soul. That's where we are. Oh, and yesterday in our midwifery read-along, we came to a section of the text which said, by the way, your problems are solvable. The false belief about the self, if we are on the hunt for this self and phronesis in philosophy, the zombie virus in charge of our life or our living dialectic, until that point, is the pathologos. But you know what? It is solvable. It is removable. You can solve the problem most worth solving. If it's the problem most worth solving, it's the activity most worth doing, it's the meaning of life. Now, we wondered about that and we said, well, hang on a second, maybe it's only the meaning of life until you're free of that parasite. Then the true meaning of life is your destiny. Now you're free to reach your destiny. And what we're reading here is the meaning of life is phronesis, because you can't, it's virtue requires phronesis. So the purpose of your soul, the excellence, or even without taking it all the way to excellence, your soul seeks the good. Your soul is, the definition of your soul are all the psychic forces that are the master of your body. You have a part of your soul that seeks to be eating sandwiches, seeks your inner desires. You have a part of your soul that wants you to go out in the world and do things, achieve things. You have a part of your soul that reasons. And all of these things seek what they consider the highest good. You want to eat a good sandwich, the best sandwich if you can, if you got the money. Or if we've gone past stupid capitalism, eat the best sandwich. What activity you want to do? You want to see the reserve grade football game or the international game? Of course, the best. Do you want to reason poorly and be duped through belief, or do you want to use the reasoning part of your soul good, in a good way, and develop sacrifice beliefs to develop your own understanding? And nous, and phronesis, beyond even nous. So all of these psychic forces brought into a unity, we can give the name soul, which happens to be immortal, we just read. It seeks its good. It's the basic principle motivating us, seeking its good. Thumbs down. Why? Because we don't know the good. But thumbs up, because what we've just realized is, hey, that quest, that thing that we're on, whether we know it or not, the thing the soul seeks, phronesis. Or phronesis is at least a part of it, because you can't have your ultimate finished goal, state of self-being, functioning through self-being, without it being beneficial to yourself and others. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the highest good. By the way, benefit is bestowing a good. That state of being good is virtue. Is virtue one of the ideas of the good in being that we can remember through learning, through this kind of reading and dialectic? Or is it beyond the idea of the good, the experience of being, something tied to self. And well, so if that's the question on the table. Is it applied to that self way of being, that mysterious ultimate virtue of phronesis? If so, that's the meaning of life. That's our final goal. That's our destination. That's what we're headed for. That's what we want. And that's that's the necessary state of being to actually be a good person. Okay. To be the best person, to be in excellence, to actually be able to function through the greatest kind of benefit. So what? Well, in midwifery, we said the meaning of life is to free ourselves from the false leader, from the zombie virus. Now, here we're saying the meaning of life is to get the true leader, phronesis. Is there more to virtue than phronesis? That's the question. So, what's more important was the question we were playing with yesterday. Freeing yourself from the pathologos or the phronesis state of self? I think, yesterday our conclusion was midwifery, freeing yourself from your problems and your eternal suffering or your perpetual cycles of suffering. That is better than phronesis. And but what seems to be a more sensible conclusion is, one and then the other. Pierre talked about having brilliant light experiences and trading them in for an insight into his pathologos. I'd rather free myself from my pathologos than have another experience of being. True reality. But we and this channel do them both together, so we can keep that speculation as for fun while doing both. So that's where we are. Number one, is phronesis equal to virtue, or is phronesis just a part of virtue, considering it has to be there? That's next question. Well, how do we get this virtue then? So we want this virtue. And then, who is this Anitos who's just entered the scene? And is he going to help us? Is he going to be a good master helping us with those questions, or is it going to be a tangent? That's where we are. Let's jump in. All right. Here we are in the text. I hope the lights are okay. I'm not too bright. Just turn us down one. Here we go. Let's reread this last part. Let's go back for the beginning of this argument so we have it for ourselves. What follows then? Do we say that self-excellence is good? When I say excellence, virtue, it's the same thing. Do we say that self-virtue or excellence is good or something else? Or do we keep the hypothesis, the definition, that it is good? The self of excellence is good. Now, you can take this statement and say this could be a clue, foreshadowing. Not only the self, the subject of the sentence, but the self, the one self, is it the good? Okay, so we say that self-virtue is good. If something is good that has also been separated from knowledge, perhaps it may be virtue, if there is a good other than knowledge. But if there is a good that can't, but if there is no good that is outside of knowledge, if there's a good that can't be contained by knowledge, if there is no good that, so let's say that again. If there is no such thing as a good, the good, self-good, that is outside of knowledge, then we were right in suspecting that virtue has to be one of those knowable goods and therefore learnable, because that's what we remember in our learning. Certainly, it is by virtue that we are good. So, also it's causing the level of virtue that we have causes how good we are. Yes, if good, then beneficial and useful. Now I say levels because maybe it's not a level. Maybe it's no, I don't think that's true. It could be either. Your level of participation in virtue is your level of being good, or maybe you just cross the threshold, you reach virtue, and now you can be genuinely good and not just expressing it in lesser ways. Surely then virtue is useful, beneficial. Oh, hang on a second. If it's good, then beneficial. For all those that are good are beneficial, yes. These are the conclusions that we have agreed upon. Surely then, let us consider what is that which is beneficial for us by taking up each kind. Surely we say health, strength, beauty, and wealth. These things are beneficial, right? Yes. Meno, who is, I'm guessing, has all of these because of his privileged upbringing. Whereas we say that the same kinds also sometimes do harm. Sure, you can be a healthy Nazi. Consider then, when something guides each of these, it benefits us. When something else leads, it does harm. When Hitler leads the healthy German youth, bad things happen. When Socrates does, well, that's a timeline. I would like to invent a time machine to travel into and live in that planet, please. Or gather the infinity stones. However jumping timelines works, I want to go to that world where the health, strength, beauty, and wealth is guided by a Socrates and not a Hitler. Then, is it not then, when correct use guides us, it benefits us. When it does not, it harms us. So now we've gone from so again, we are reflecting on the process of reflection as we go, so we can learn to talk like this to ourselves and others like Socrates, for always. We started with some examples. We looked at what follows. Okay, start with some definitions. What's a definition? Don't know definition. What's some demonstrations of good beneficial things? Health, strength, beauty, and wealth. Divisions. How does it function in the world? Well, remember, division often has a plus and a minus. What follows and what follows if it isn't. Division stage of the dialectic, remember? There are 4 categories. Here we go. Oh, and there are some scribbles. Whoops. By the way, this is how we think. We use analogies to think. So you could say, so we can wonder, is mastering this art of the dialectic that Socrates is saying is the meaning of life a purpose here? Does that also involve mastering analogies? Because we're using an analogy to discover something we don't know. What don't we know? We don't know this. If X exists, virtue. What is virtue? If it does exist, if it doesn't exist, what is it? Don't know. But we can have some demonstrations of things we call good and beneficial: health, wealth, beauty, youth. What else? Strength. Division stage, okay. This often has two categories. This path here, if you do it, this path, if it's... So these demonstrations, how do they divide up? If they are present or they aren't? Well, we kind of have both. If we are guided by a correct guide, correct, notice, correct, not what you like or what you're used to or what you grew up with or what makes you the most money. There is a right and wrong. It's not a matter of opinion. It's not a democracy thing. Is there a correct way of ruling yourself? But it's not a fascist thing. It's interesting when you talk about going from the votes of ignorant people to understanding. It's like we've been trained to think that the opposite, or there are only two choices: democracy or tyranny. So people are celebrating Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and some people even Putin, because democracy is irrational in principle. Of course, we all need to have a say, and it's important that we have a say, and there needs to be a feedback mechanism because it's about us, how we live. But as a ruling principle, rule by the opinions. This is the Republic, by the way. People assume, well, if it's not ruled by the many, there's going to be an asshole in charge. There's going to be some tyrant in charge. No. That's what happens without the logos. That's the negative side. But with the logos, if the logos was present, we could be ruled by that, which would be no different than going in a plane flown by someone with the mastery of how to fly a plane. That's not tyranny. Getting your broken arm mended by a doctor who has a mastery of medicine. It's not tyranny. Keep that in mind. So, there is a correct guidance of these demonstrations. And one we could say Socrates, one we could say Hitler. Therefore, we can come to a conclusion. So we are looking for the structure of the dialectic in Socrates' thinking. So we can be it and learn it and practice it. Oops. Okay. So, when the correct use guides it, by the way, using it for something. So there is a functioning necessarily involved. If it's the correct use does not guide these things, these demonstrations of beneficial things, then it harms. Very much so. Let us consider those belonging to the soul. Okay, so the qualities not of the physical body, health, strength, beauty, and wealth, but the qualities of the soul. How cool-headed are you? It's a quality of your soul. Do you fly off the handles? To the moment you hear a new idea, do you go, what? What is this? Woke? What are you? Woke? Oh, I'm so triggered. Then you've got no temperance, sound-mindedness. So these are the qualities of the soul that are beneficial. Sound-mindedness, which isn't just keeping your cool, but having a singular direction for all of the function, all of the aspects of your soul being united in correct use. Justice. Well, that would be the correct use being done at all times. Courage. Virility, courage. To be able to use that unified soul and cool-headedness to reach your purpose. We're wondering, is it phronesis or is it freedom from Pathologos? Is it the art of the dialectic that can be applied to both? Is it being stung? Aporia? How do they all mix together? That's our question of the text. Nevertheless, doing those things with courage, even when it's scary, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not ideal, keep going. And if it's not ideal, keep going, have that experience, come back on here, join the Discord, say, I tried to do excellence, or I tried to keep a sound-minded soul doing my intended function today when I did X, Y, and Z, but it didn't go well. Here's what happened. Then your friends on this channel can say, ooh, let's apply the dialectic. Can we find a structure in your description? Can we find a turning point for the divisions where it could have gone this way, but it went that way? Is there a theme that we can look from those divisions and culminate to get an insight from? Also, quickness in learning, memory, and magnificence. I don't know what magnificence is. Don't know this word. I couldn't look it up. But I'll look into it later. So, maybe seeking excellence, seeking greatness, along with trying to learn as quickly as you can. So we talk about doing this at all times for a reason. Who knows how much time you have on this planet? You're going to roll the dice and hope that you come back in these perfect conditions, and you hope that you live a life that can lead you to this. What are the odds? I can tell you the odds. I have 100 subscribers on YouTube and Twitch, I think, something like that. So what's 100 out of 8 billion? You're going to roll those dice, or are you going to try and learn as quickly as you can? So these are all beneficial qualities of the soul, just as health, strength, beauty, and wealth are to the body. So, consider then, do these appear not to be knowledge, but other than knowledge? Do they not at times do harm and at times benefit? For example, courage without phronesis is not courage, but a kind of rashness, audacity, being foolish, bad confidence, overconfidence. So make sure you've got some phronesis guiding. So we're talking about the correct use. So is phronesis maybe not even a state of being, but a use? So phronesis as using to facilitate the phronesis in others, maybe, or the phronesis in yourself. So when a human being is rash without intellect, so here we have, along with phronesis, the mysterious self-virtue. We have nous. So we do have understanding of the ideal. Not understanding, that's dianoia. Nous. We have direct apprehension of the ideal. So, if you're rash without nous, you are harmed. But when they act with intellect, benefited. But nous isn't phronesis. Phronesis must have a scope over nous. What does that mean? So if what we are hypothesizing where's our picture? Here we go. Right, so if these are the levels of reality that we're looking at, whoops. My blackboard is glitching out. There we go. So if there is the physical world of becoming, the physical realm that we start in with our opinions and beliefs like Meno, there is this realm of being or ultimate reality, which I'm suspecting Socrates might be a personification of. The parts of virtue are there. We've already got them. This is the knowable experience. This is the remembering. This is also nous. Above that is the self. And we are wondering, is this where phronesis is? If so, why is he saying, hey, if you have courage without phronesis, you're foolish? Because acting without nous is foolish. Why does phronesis imply nous? Why can he jump between them from this level? Don't know, but it's a question. We put it in our question sack and we wonder as we read. So, without nous, they are harmed. But if they are with nous, benefited. Does the same hold for sound-mindedness, temperance, and quickness in learning? For also, on the one hand, when those are learned and prepared, coordinated with nous, they are beneficial, whereas on the other hand, without nous, harmful. You want to use your even-temperedness to reach something other than nous? Or are you using something other than nous, the idea of the good, the model of beauty and justice? Are you using something other than that as a model in your life? Do you think it's good to be a Nazi? Or is it good to know the true nature of self, justice, beauty, and mind directly in nous? Well, not much of a question. I mean, it is the most important question everyone should ask themselves every day, so it is much of a question, but when you say it out loud, the answer is pretty obvious. So, generally, on the one hand, when the soul is guided by phronesis, not nous, everything she attempts or endures ends in blessedness. So, he's saying, if you are guided by phronesis, it'll work out. And that blessedness, this word eudaimonia speaks to the highest kind of happiness, a kind of spiritual happiness. It also, the etymology of the word is good daimon. So within their culture, there is a recognition that there is an understanding or recognition that the highest happening, the highest happiness, the highest state of being or mind is tied to or tied with being the good daimon. What does the good daimon do? Communicates the true providence care through the self-logos to all things at all times. So, what does that mean? Well, there is an immense wisdom of your good. So, the daimon has to know the good. So, there is nous, knowing the idea and the model of the good. Also has to know you and what you've been going through and where you're headed. So, has to know time all at once. Eternity. Have the paradigm of all of time. These are all things in here, in nous. So the good daimon, that is the end of all of our activities and trials and things, has to have this. But also, as we've read, if we are guided by phronesis, everything will reach our end in good daimonia. Well, hang on a second. If phronesis does what is the thing that does what is most good, and you can't do that without phronesis yourself, are you doing the most good if you are not leading someone to phronesis? Of course, you're not. If phronesis is a necessary quality of virtue, are you making people more virtuous by limiting phronesis? No. So what? So this good daimon state of being must itself involve phronesis. At least, well, yeah, it has to. That's the state of being called eudaimonia. that happens if we are benefited or guided by phronesis. That's what gives benefit. And the function and the good daemon is a way of functioning, so a beneficial way of functioning, so we can conclude the good daemon must also have phronesis, but also has nous. The good daemon also has nous to use as a model to help us here. Oh, not just helping us here, the daemon can help you through your oops, what happened? Oops. Your daemon, your spirit guide, your communication of divine care, providence through the self-logos can also help you go through here. Not just from Meno to Socrates. So what? So the daemon... What? Uh-oh. My blackboard crashed. It's back. Maybe I'm giving away too much of a puzzle. So, another way of putting that together is our model. Any of these beneficial qualities of the self are not themselves beneficial unless they are accompanied with what things? Phronesis as the guide, but also coordinated with... The word coordinated is here. Coordinated with. So from and guided by nous. Sorry, from and guided by phronesis, coordinated with intellect. That will end in your greatest state of being, which is eudaimonia, good daemon. Which would have to itself, if function good way, therefore itself, the thing is leading you to it. From phronesis coordinated with intellect, guiding you, or the conversation, so that you equally reach the same state. So you can be a good daemon. So you can reach this phronesis, is that here? Wondering? With nous, to function to people like Meno or yourself or your friends through the logos. So the good daemon requires, as we said, phronesis, state of being, coordinated with intellect, mastery of the logos, which are the three hypotheses of Parmenides that are all related to self and have logos. And the next stage of our evolution, as we've been talking about. Right? So if these are the hypotheses of Parmenides, or states of development for individuals and cultures. We're here in the fourth, where we are motivated with zombies to our pathologos and those same principles that make us.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
That prevents us from learning or growing and addressing actual problems. That's what we are here to learn on the channel. That's where we are as developing souls. That's where our culture is. It's a movement from this pathologos ways of being within our soul, causing our misery and our unjust actions, reflected in groups, religions, cults, political parties, fighting and killing each other forever. So this is how shit we are. This is the threshold for maturity, rationality, and care. The things that we should have as hallmarks. So, you could say, well, let's make it a principle. On the doorway of every government building or every public building, know the one self. Know thyself. So that we can cross this threshold, because how do you know yourself? Through the self-logos. The mastery of the dialectic, that's how care is bestowed. That logos can also be is the dialectic applied to Meno is Socrates functioning in a helpful way. The dialectic applied to ourselves to reach nous is philosophy. We're not midwifing or dialecting someone else. We are doing it for ourselves to reach nous. But we have to, that's not the end, of course, because as we've said, or as we are reading, even apprehension of the nature of reality isn't enough to do good. There are people who've had this. This is the enlightenment experience of Taoism. This symbol here. That doesn't mean you're a dialectician. It doesn't mean you can do any good. You go sit in a cave and whatever. Bliss out. Dwell in the isles of the blessed, as Socrates calls it. You have to then apply the dialectic to look at the nature of this. That's formally the dialectic. That's the philosophical dialectic, or the version of the dialectic in chapter 6 of the Republic. But there is a different version of the dialectic in chapter 7. There are two, which is not the movement from here to here, but the movement from here to here. So, phronesis, oneself first hypothesis, in coordinated with the model of being, truth, justice. Through the self-logos, like we are learning here, this is why we're breaking down the thinking of Socrates, to help ourselves when our pathologos comes up, because it functions to stop this, but also same thing in society. The institution, forces, and entrenched politicians will want to prevent the saving of humanity. They all know they are driving us into extinction. They all know that there is child prostitution. They all know that there is child slave labor. They all know that there's global warming. They all know these things. They just don't care because they are not these sorts of people, because this is where care happens. Benefit happens necessarily. If you're not a soul seeking this, if you're a capitalist or a materialist, you can't bestow care. What are you going to give everyone $1 billion? Then no one's rich. Oh, that's kind of the point. By the way, they would never give everyone $1 billion. That's not how $1 billion works. You have to stop everyone from having any money, so that the little money whatever money you have, these people will fall over themselves to have sex with you for money, or build your boat, or buy your, I don't know, not buy anything from you. Clean your pool, serve you food, build your rockets, build your gold toilets. So, again, zombies. We are ruled by the pathologos as a society, as we are as individuals. Our job is to free ourselves from that, which requires this quest. And think about it. Find the kindest, most charming, most beautiful souls you've ever seen, and ask the question, is it because they're rational? Do they naturally want to discuss, not gossip and shoot people down like people from here do? You're not in my group. I feel superior. My group's number one. Yay, Jews. Yay, Christians. Yay, men. No. These people that you meet that are the best kinds of people, do they reflect on causes, ideas? What are the principles behind all of these things so we can understand and address them fairly? Can we invite others into a conversation with them so we can help them understand what they're really doing, dialectic, how it's really functioning, dialectic, its conclusion, dialectic, and the root cause or definition, dialectic? In my experience, these people who have a natural inclination to that reason are able to provide care, providence. These two are symbolic or representative of the third hypothesis level of development. That is where we need to make the next step into. Of course, if they stick with it, and if they meet someone like you, a viewer of this channel, and you become friends and you have coffee with them, and reflect in this way over coffee, they might graduate to actually direct apprehension. They are the sort of souls who are probably more inclined to be able to do this. They can actually see the nature of reality, experience, turn their mind around, usia, and experience reality itself, recognize and rediscover the immortality of their soul and the sameness between their own consciousness and the consciousness of all reality. And even then, that can be used for harm. You can have these various experiences and stuff, especially if you haven't got there through the dialectic, and use it to, I don't know, start a cult. That's happened many a times. Perpetuate a spiritual tradition that is opposed to the logos. So Socrates is saying, you better also have this. By the way, this might solve some puzzles. If you are not using your experience of this to then reach that, it's not beneficial. Which is interesting, because one of the ways you can do harm with this enlightenment experience is to reject the logos. Meaning your spiritual experiences in the meditation hall are all luck and usually never happen. But also you are discounting what you need to actually solve your problems, which are preventing. You need to be doing both. They are making exclusive and irrational the journey up, and they are making exclusive and irrational the ability to remove our blocks to allow us to enter that journey by rejecting the logos for tradition. Because they are blocked. Therefore, having this experience isn't enough to remove your blocks. Therefore, you better be doing what you can with your spiritual experience. So one of the principles Pierre talks about in midwifery, if you have enlightenment experiences, keep going. Share them with others in the group, in your friend circle or whatever, but also keep going. What's beyond even enlightenment experiences? Phronesis, the self. So we have clear examples of even coordinated with nous ain't beneficial and therefore ain't virtue unless you are yourself functioning from there, coordinated with this, through this, and your direction would therefore to be help people themselves through this. So this is what we would suspect, if this is the end of our receiving of benefit, eudaimonia, or good daemon, we can posit that this is the meaning of life. This is our final state. This is our final Super Saiyan form. And also everything we do better be in service of that. So we've been wondering, is the removal of our blocks more important than reaching the top? Like which, if you were to say there is a meaning of life, which is it? And we said, well, probably this one's more important than that one. If you were to pick, someone said like a gun to your head, pick one. But really they go together. You can't have this without removing this. You can't have a false belief about yourself that keeps you tied to a irrational loyalty to groups because of a fundamental misunderstanding of reality or the ultimate divine nature of yourself. Or you can't have one that dismisses the ultimate divine nature of yourself while also having an ultimate divine the realization and state of being, the recognition of your ultimate divine nature. You can't have both. So they go together. So we're learning about, number one, what guides the good daemon. Why are we guided by the good daemon? Hey, if it can be shown that every dream we have every night, several times a night, every 90 minutes, if that was designed by the good daemon, should we be letting it lead us? Because if it can be shown that there is a divine care and logos in our dreams, so long as we unpack it with the dialectic, that shows a coordination with nous, profound sense of a profound knowingness, but also a knowingness of you, your problems, all of your experiences, what's happening right now and your future, leading you ultimately, and also talking about how to reach here, giving you reminders of your self-nature, giving you even pure, clear experience. This is an ultimate experience, beauty, bliss, justice, all those sorts of things. This is beyond experience. This is a level of clarity and purity of the self. If this can be shown to exist in dreams, we can make the conclusion or the hypothesis that the good daemon is that which guides and rules dreams. Therefore, given what we've been saying here, it should be the guide of our soul. If the soul is guided by phronesis and coordinated with intellect, everything that we attempt will end in ourselves reaching that same state of good daemon that is the cause of our dreams. But also, if it's, well, possibly the cause of everything, the cause even of causes, the self. With a coordination of, with nous, with a mastery of the art of the dialectic that we're learning as we read, so that we can reach it and be most happy and beneficial. So, if the soul is guided by phronesis, coordinated up here with intellect, everything that we attempt and endure ends in us reaching a good daemon, the highest state of happiness. Whereas if we are led by a lack of phronesis, interesting, mindlessness, because mind is nous. This is literally, it's defined as beyond mind, but anyway. Mindful is the word the translator picks. Again, there's no word in English for the state of being of self of phronesis, even though it's apparently the goal of our existence and the end we will reach if we guide our souls in this way. We should have a word for it, right? So if you are watching this and you are a dictionary person, you are either Merriam or Webster, please add this to the dictionary and put it on the front and the first page as well, so everyone sees it. I know the dictionaries are written in alphabetical order, but make an exception for this one. That's how important it is. Accordingly then, if excellence is a certain one of those in the soul, one of those things that can be known, because it's nous, and it is also necessarily beneficial to self, then self must be phronesis. What? Seeing that all the selves of the soul, on the one hand, are neither harmful nor beneficial according to selves, whereas they become harmful or beneficial with the addition of phronesis or absence of phronesis. Right. So every one of those knowable beings, or knowable aspects of mind that we know through remembering, through nous, for them to be beneficial, they also have to what? Okay, so I looked it up. For enlightenment or knowledge or our remembering of the things within the immortal soul that we have, they are only beneficial if it also is phronesis. So this self must be mindfulness, anai. It's not ontos, it's not being. In other words, it's not being itself or nous. It is. And I'm assuming it's the way that the word is used in the first hypothesis. Specifically, the one self of the first hypothesis is. It's true. It's the true nature of our first cause and our final cause. We're seeing here it's our final cause as well. But it's not being. So as we read, and you can check out the first hypothesis on the playlist on YouTube, one of the conclusions about the first hypothesis is it is in a unique way where it's not being. It normally is means being. So, for even your nous or reality to be beneficial, it also has to be the one self, phronesis. Surely then, according to this logos, by excellence being indeed beneficial, it must be a kind of phronesis. Cool. Let us also take up the other kinds which we were just now discussing, like wealth and those physical things, which are at times good and at times harmful. Were they not made just like the kinds in the soul, the good qualities in the soul? You don't want to be a courageous Nazi, you want to be a courageous phronesis, guiding people to phronesis. Coordinated with nous and through the logos, but to phronesis. Same thing with wealth. You don't want to be a rich Nazi. Or the richest Nazi. Why do we have the richest man alive as a Nazi right now? Anyway, you don't want to be a rich Nazi because wealth in itself are at times good, other times harmful. Were they not made just like the other kinds? The ones in the soul? When phronesis guides, they benefit the soul, but on the other hand, when a lack of phronesis leads, they harm the soul. Notice, this is not an opposite thing. It's not saying pathologos. You could say that. We have been making the case that the cause of human problems that keeps us in a guided by that which is most negative and harmful to the logos and providence, third hypothesis. Guided by that which is most harmful to logos and providence, most harmful to being, tells you that reality is bad in some way, and tells you that yourself is inadequate. That's what is ruling. So, things are harmful in our society and in our relationships and in our workplace and in everything we do based on whether or not the pathologos is leading or what Socrates is saying, the actual state of being of self is leading. But that phronesis also somehow is able to coordinate with nous and also is able to coordinate through logos and dialectic to help people stuck in their problems like Meno, and even people worse than Meno who don't even think that they can connect with anything beyond themselves. There's just a physical world. There is no point. Just whatever you want it to be. There is no truth. Help even those people, the really sad ones. Because this is a feeling of complete disconnection from the one self or higher oneness. So, progressing in this way, we're not jumping to the top like some spiritual traditions, like maybe Buddhism, that might even jump beyond Taoism, enlightenment, to a kind of emptiness that they don't understand because they didn't go through this. But we are going through this. Necessarily so that we can reach our fulfillment and highest level of functioning, highest level of benefit to ourselves and others, the good daemon. So what? So that's what we are adding to this because we are able to read the philosophical midwifery book. Socrates, there's evidence that Socrates could function as a midwife to your pathologos, your false belief of self, but for whatever reason, Plato didn't write about that. It might have been because midwifery was so associated with Homer and the Iliad and Achilles, the worst person doing midwifery to become the best, even having enlightenment states and reaching the highest level. Because his teacher Socrates was murdered by jerks who thought that this way of thinking that, or no, literally believing in a daemon, or it's not belief if it's Socrates has become it, or it's communicating to him. Anyway, recognizing there is a daemon is against the official religions of Zeus and all those people, a lot of which come from Homer. So if those Homer lovers killed Socrates, who was the beloved teacher of Plato, maybe that influenced why Plato never wrote anything about midwifery. Maybe it was because Plato was only 26 when Socrates was killed, maybe not old enough to have completely removed their pathologos. Whatever the reason, Plato doesn't write the pathologos. It's not one of the words he uses, even though it's heavily implied or referenced or makes sense of sections in Plato. So it's good that we bring it with us. However, it's not literally written down. Instead, what he's saying is, hey, whatever we have, health, wealth, even characteristics of the soul, be a really courageous person, it is not virtue because it can harm people. We are harmed if we are being guided by something that is, where is it? Let's highlight it. Oops. Where's my highlighter? Oh, got it. We have the word a here, or the prefix a. Oops. And then, let's try one more time. A. And then we have, we'll make this another color. Then we have phronesis. Aphronesis, an absence of phronesis. It's like saying, oh, right now I'm not standing. In order to do this podcast, I have to be not standing. What I really mean is I have to be sitting. What's the actual thing in the place of the absence of something? There is an absence of phronesis. There is an absence of a recognition and state of being of the pure, authentic, natural, wondering, aporia self that you are most happy in. You are most functioning, most justly and beneficially in, the good daemon. That's your natural state of self. When that's not there, aphronesis, absence of phronesis, what is there? That's the pathologos. So the text, it says, when aphronesis leads, then all of the potentially good qualities of your soul or of your physical state, your physical lot in life, it's harmful. It's harmful when there is a lack of phronesis. It's not excellence yet. It's opposite. It's vice. So also in turn, which is another way of saying for us, given what we've been doing and seeing in the space of sitting on the throne where phronesis and the self should sit, is the pathologos. That's why every second day we do midwifery and we cheer. And because it's so good, we get a round of applause and a special dance. They high-fived at the end. They're getting better at their dancing. So in turn, in these cases, if, on the one hand, the soul uses and guides them correctly, what? The neutral but potentially positive qualities of the potentially beneficial qualities of the body and the soul. If the soul uses and guides them correctly, interesting, the soul, which would be with and through phronesis and to phronesis, then she makes selves beneficial. Whereas if she does not use them correctly, she makes them harmful. Very much so. Then indeed, the phronesis soul, oh, hello. Stop the presses. You know how we've been talking about here, let's have a look. For anyone watching along, I'm going to take some time to lay this out because you're a real one. Look. D-A-I-M-O-N-I-A-N. Daimonian. Daimon. Not demon or anything spiritual if you've been brought up with bullshit fairy tales from harm-giving parents who say that there are evil demons who want to enter. If you watch Harry Potter, you're ill. Be scared, be scared. No. These are all fear-based lies to keep you enslaved. Why? Because if you are being told about evil spirits and demons, it is a part of a belief system that's false and harmful. You can only accept the stupid, harmful fairy tale beliefs of other people if you are not working on your own understanding. We said this earlier, this is right at the beginning of the text. Understanding means you see whether or not something is good or bad. Belief is you trust some other doofus. That's why people are manipulated to act in harmful ways through beliefs. Nazi beliefs, doing world wars. Christian beliefs, doing crusades and genocides. Zionist beliefs for genocides. These are all beliefs. Beliefs that can trick people into acting in harmful ways because they think through belief the bad is good. Understanding does not make that mistake. So, realize that and be brave and courageous while seeking the true nature of the self so that you can be beneficial yourself. And keep an open mind and drop those fairy tales if they come up, because that's not what daemon means. We are defining what daemon means. This is the most important thing. This is what made all the difference for Socrates, says Socrates. Well, at least at his trial. Now, we have the word the prefix EU, which means good. We also have kaka, which means bad. So the voice of our pathologos that echoes through our mind, distracting us, sapping our psychic energy, causing us to imagine people are thinking bad things, to create negative situations or scenarios, starring us, not really, your false idea of yourself, that causes your problems, saps you of energy, causes you to undermine your goals. That's the kaka daemon. You might say the inner critic. We're talking about the good daemon. Now that serves an important role to maintain the power of your problem so that you actually learn midwifery and free yourself from it. There must be, at the end of all this, well, this is the hypothesis, some ultimate divine benefit of having gone through having a pathologos and becoming free. It's a kaka daemon. The good daemon is what we're talking about here, which is guided by mindfulness and guides souls and maybe creates every dream we have. Maybe. Keep that as a question. Go on the quest. Report your results in the Discord or in the comment section. Now, EU, good, daemon. Okay? What we just read, okay, when phronesis, so look at the word phronesis. PH, that's what that circle with a line through it means. R-O-N. Phrone. And then the context of the word within the sentence gives you the rest of it. So literally, let's quickly look up what that is in Greek. Phronesis. I-S-I-S. Oh, okay. It's just phronesis. Phronesis. P-H-R-O-N-I-S-I-S. I think this N is an S and this S is an S. So what? Well, when again, we don't say pathologos, we say a, which means opposite of or anti to. PHRO, and then the rest. When anti or phronesis-lessness leads, then we do harm. So what? So, we just read something. So the correct use of any of the qualities we have within our body and soul, that's the soul using and guided correctly. It leads to benefit, if not harm. Then the phronesis soul guides correctly, whereas the phronesis-less soul misses the mark. This is a conclusion, but look at the conclusion. Here we have, then indeed, the phronesis, he likes to use mindful. We don't have an English word, so what are you going to say to him? He put a capital letter. He put it in purple. He kept the Greek. He couldn't have done anything better. Maybe, okay, the only thing he could have done really, and what I would suggest if he's watching or he hears back, just use the word phronesis. I mean, we use the word self now, and we use the word, even though that was banned. Oh, you can't have a self. You're a slave. You're a peasant. That's selfish. You have to sacrifice for the king. Give all your stuff to Elon Musk. Fight wars for Dick Cheney. Yes, you don't have a self. You are just a plaything for the rich. Nope. Bullshit. Fuck you. We have the word self now. That was a great betrayal to all human beings for the last 1500 years. Let's not mince words. The removal of the word self, that is the essence of philosophy as we are seeing, the removal of that from the translations have been a great betrayal. But we have this text, so we are on the right track again. Also, ousia, sometimes he puts the Greek in again because we don't have the word. Although we can recognize and appreciate that this is for not just philosophers, it's for everyone. So, but it's okay because he uses the word intellect, he puts it in a different color, he puts it a capital I, and he has the word nous underneath. So gives intellect to those less familiar, but also we know when we see a different colored word or a capital letter, look underneath and get the actual word. So what? Let's do it here. Because we've come to a conclusion. This is our question. What's the meaning of life? How do we be good? How do we be the most good, the most beneficial? What is our goal? What is the height of happiness? What is the height of functioning in the best way? What is it and how do we get it? That's the question. We're getting close. Why? Well, we've come to a conclusion. The soul guiding everything we have and do is virtuous if done with phronesis, whereas A, look, here's our A, and here's our PH. PH is this one here. This one that looks like a P is an R. This one that looks like a W is an O. That one that looks like a V is an N. PHRON. That's the root of the word phronesis. If, and the word A is opposite, if opposite of phronesis or anti-phronesis, soul will miss the mark. And I want to nail down this word too. Copy this. Paste it in here. Oh, you guys can see, why not? Whoa. That's why not. Oh my god. The internet has taken over my face. Here I am. So, we paste it in the Unicode converter, and then we paste. Then we hit convert. It gives us the Greek words, Greek letters. Copy that. Paste it in Google Translate. Imati menos. Ooh, got a chatter. First time chat. Cheap viewers. Wow. I just have to give you money and I get cheap viewers? Should I do that? Should I pay for cheap viewers? Considering what they'll be viewing is the thing that will most benefit their soul. If it's about understanding the meaning of life, recognizing how it's to do with benefit and health of the soul, recognizing the immortal nature of the soul so that you recognize it's the thing most worth doing, and recognizing what causes harm, or at least wondering about those things. Sure, I paid money to have them watch, but how much is the value of a soul? I suspect that the viewers that I'm paying for, if I listen to this strange chatter who uses strange letters, I guess, so they're not picked up by the algorithm. Spammer. There won't be real viewers. I suspect they'll just be screens open in some basement. So, I'll just delete him. Imartimenos. Imartia. Oh, okay, so I recognize this word already. It's imartia. Let's... Imartia means missing the mark, to go wrong, to do... yes, so this is the word that has been mistranslated as sin, which is exactly baby brain shit, as we see in midwifery. Guilt and blame are specifically negative, harmful, non-phronesis techniques and tools to maintain the pathologos and justify violence and suffering in the service of the person motivated by their pathologos to be a dick. Sorry, to be what they consider actually good and great and virtuous, like Meno, when really it's literally the thing doing the most harm to themselves and others. Blame game does that. It's on the bad team, the alogos team, the pathologos team. Why am I talking about that now? Because blame and guilt are stupid because, number one, it assigns a single cause to things that have many causes. If you're a human being, one of those causes is your pathologos. One of those causes is providence, the good daemon communicating to you. Let's not reject those. And simply saying, no, there's only one cause, this person. This person did the bad thing because they are bad. Stupid shit. Any reward and punishment. You're doing stupid shit. Wake up. Sorry, that's a bit harsh. Please consider not doing things which are actively against the logos and self. So specifically, you did a bad thing. You didn't. You missed the mark. Object for reflection, to reflect on causes. Oh, it was very good and important that you missed the mark so that you can realize something you didn't notice. Solve a puzzle. So the mistranslation of this word missing the mark is sin, which is to smuggle in to an oppressive system of belief the idea that if you ever miss the mark, and of course you're here to do that, you are bad. That's what sin means. You are bad in nature. You are born with original sin. You suck and you stink, and then have sex with these priests, or give money to these priests, or let a priest buy a gold jet, or go in and kill all these Muslims in Palestine or whatever. Manipulated to do actively harmful things against your interest and the interest of the world through beliefs. Specifically, you have to smuggle in this idea of innate badness. Otherwise, why would you give up your development in yourself to buy into this bullshit? Blame and shame. To say bad things happen because of you. No. We're here to learn that. Oh, no, and also it's because you're bad. That's what sin is. Now, in the actual Greek in the Bible, sin isn't there. It's amartia, which means misses the mark. So any soul that isn't guided by phronesis, which is pretty much most, if not all people that I know of living on this planet, maybe Socrates was different, they're not quite getting there. But that we don't blow up the planet and kill all people because we're all innately bad. Humanity isn't innately bad because we haven't quite yet reached phronesis. That's just where we are in a level of development. Therefore, it is wrong, morally wrong, untrue, and harmful to say amartya or sin, to say that sin exists, and to mistranslate amartya as sin. Fix it. If you're religious and you're from any of those Abrahamic religions, which reference this Greek word in your text, fix it. Do not go hunting for mistakes that people made as an excuse to abuse them by saying, oh, look, you're a sinner. Oh, look, women suck after all. Oh, look, Muslims suck after all. Or look, children should be beaten after all. No, after all. We are noble selves here to discover reality as our own mind. That's what learning is for. To get there, you have to master the art of the dialectic. That's what we're doing here. That's the next stage of our evolution. That's what real education is. And that requires us to make mistakes, or amartya, miss the mark, not because we're innately sinful, but because we are born into here and we get pathologos that causes us to fail at our goals, so that we can ousia, reflect on that, remove the false belief about self, which frees us to reaching our true destiny, which is to know the true nature of the self and function through it in coordination with nous, through the art of the dialectic, to help those people. And if you are helping people, the thing you will never ever do is call anyone a sinner, or a race innately bad, or a gender innately bad, or establish these kinds of terrible hierarchies that get people to diminish the self, diminish reality, or prevent their development of understanding through the dialectic. You would never ever do that if you were actually a good person or a good daemon. You can say, well, people do that. Yeah, I know. Out of ignorance? Perhaps. But they have a moral obligation to remove their ignorance. That's the difference. Everything that follows is a dialectic playing out the implications of having the sickness as an individual, as a race, leading to the extinction of humanity. Or we show some courage, because women can be very courageous. Have some courage, guided by phronesis, to make that jump, to make that change, to change our mind. That's true courage. So what? So never use the word sin or any words like sand monkey or I don't know, anything like that diminishes the nature of the self by suggesting that humans are innately bad. Because every time someone says that, it's immediately followed by and therefore. Humans are innately bad, blacks are innately bad, and therefore slavery is okay, let's do it. Muslims are innately bad, therefore let's genocide Palestine, let's do it. Never start with that. We are not innately bad. This is the cause of our problems that are understandable through the dialectic. Yell it from the mountaintops. Graffiti it all over the walls of the houses of every single politician, every single lawmaker, every single teacher. Or you don't have to use graffiti, just practice the dialectic and talk to these people in this artful way that can facilitate this. If you're doing so, you have perhaps reached your final stage of being and happiness of the good daemon. Good daemon. Good daemon. My chicken has done that. So that's why I say good daemon, good chicken. That's why it's so happy and wise. And beneficial, and therefore virtuous. So, quickly addressing that had to be addressed because This misuse of this word is a fundamental keystone in removing oppression, suffering, violence, and torture of children through religious beliefs that tell them you are a bad girl, you are a bad boy, you have sin. Look at Jesus, look at him suffering. You did that. Nasty. Stop it. You are being harmful. So, that out of the way, that's missing the mark, that's amartya. Now, we miss the mark when and our soul is not motivated by phronesis. Phron. Now let's look at the other word. Well, so our question is, okay, so if that's the cause of problems and vice, harmful actions, what do we want? The good thing. How do we get the good thing? Let's scroll over to this side. There we go. There we go. Oh, there's our phron. There's our phron for phronesis. What do we see here? Just as we distinguished a good daemon, the ultimate functioning of the self. Yes, not mindfulness. Mindfulness is the English word that our translator picked because there is not a English equivalent for phronesis. It's a little ironic because phronesis is defined as that which is beyond mind. You could say nous is mindfulness in that it is full of mind. So we're not looking at the word mindfulness. We're looking at the word phronesis, which is the Greek word underneath it. And just as we said with amartya, mistranslating that Greek word as sin does so much objective harm. Imagine the last couple of thousand years of human history without the idea of sin, that you can say someone is just innately bad because they made a mistake. Oh, drop the juice. Ha ha. Torture you now. Go to hell. Ha ha. Blow up your family. Spilt juice means you're a bad person. Sign from God. Okay. Also, mistranslating the word can not just do harm, but prevent us from actually solving the puzzles. Therefore, moving from mindlessness to aphronesis is imperative. We're not saying people without phronesis are lacking a mind. They're not apes, less than human. No. It's aphronesis. So, and as we're saying, to actually have virtue, which would require us being good and doing good, that's called benefiting. You can only do benefit from phronesis, being guided by phronesis. And by the way, if we accept that kind of guide, we will reach the meaning of our existence. The highest happiness, or being ourselves, that good daemon. So, we have a contender for the single focus we should have at all times. I mean, it's a contender because we could also say that the other option for the meaning of life and the thing we should be doing at all times is discovering and removing our pathologos. But you can make the case that you can't do one without the other. Unless you are seeking the phronesis state of being, again, not mindless. People down here are using their mind to think or believe that there is no connection between them and the divine. No, it's not mindless. It's not the right word. And people trapped in their groups that they identify with. I'm a Christian. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Protestant. I'm a white. I'm a Republican. I'm a capitalist. No. That's not good either. That's not the self. It's creating divisions for conflict so you can justify getting all the money and the stuff to meet your physical needs. That's that game. But that's stupid and mean and irrational and short-sighted. Yeah, you can kill everyone and get their stuff, but do you want to live in that world? Why not just have all the stuff anyway? Because if we efficiently, rationally used resources, you would be able to have all the stuff you wanted anyway. And we would be able to use our collective intelligence to design systems where you wouldn't need a car. So you wouldn't even want a car. Why would you want something that sits in your garage for 23 hours a day that you have to put money into, you have to maintain, you have to fix up, you have to replace every few years? What a waste of psychic energy, of life energy. Oh, but I want to be like Jay Leno and have 1 million cars. Who cares what you want? That's not going to help you really. Oh, but I want to do harm. Who cares if you want to do harm? It's not good. And by the way, the only reason you would want to do harm by collecting all the cars or maintaining a system of inequality or oppression is because you have a sickness that's also harming your soul. So we want to look at that. So, we are realizing that either removing of our sickness is the meaning of life, midwifery, or reaching the good daemon. And of course, you can't, it's not really a question, is it? It's both. In trying to surface the true nature of the self, your pathologos false image of yourself will come up and fight against it. You can't simultaneously have the negative view of yourself and recognize yourself as the ultimate divine nature of everything. Cause of everything, beyond everything. You can't have both. So, is the meaning of life removing the pathologos? Yes. Is it what we were just reading here? Reaching the eudaimonia state of mind where you have the state of being of phronesis, not mindfulness, phronesis, which is beyond mind. Act in coordination with mind, with mindful, with nous, the paradigm, mind itself. Function through the art of the dialectic as Socrates is demonstrating, which is why we're breaking down his thinking so we can recognize it, become familiar with it, and all of which, above this line, the first, second, and third hypotheses are all the hypotheses of self and logos. That's what we're doing. Without in Latin means sign and is pronounced sin. No, it's amartia. It means missing the mark. It's an archery term. If you say to someone who speaks Latin without sin, it would be like without. Oh, in Latin, sorry. Without sin. Someone without sin, without. Oh, all right. So you're making the same point. Right. Even in Latin, the word sin, it sounds like, doesn't mean you are innately evil and deserve to suffer by priests or capitalists in authority or whatever. No, the word means without. Now, if that's true, without what? Well, we've got your answer. Without what? We have amartia or miss the mark if we are without phronesis. That's the conclusion. I had no clue what I was saying. That's a good point. Without what? If the real word behind the mistranslation that implies wrongness, you're unchristian, you're a heathen, you're a sinner. No, stop that. That's bad. The cause of us missing the mark is to be without what? Phronesis. Therefore, we want phronesis. We need phronesis. That's our goal. And to be guided by phronesis. Because if we are guided by phronesis in everything we do at all times, we'll eventually reach our end, which is true happiness or being ourselves the good daemon. Okay, got it. Everything apron, think of an apron, but bad. An apron that's on fire. Aphronesis causes us to miss the mark. Which is interesting. So if we go every single religion or country that has a language that takes a human being and says they are innately bad, that's why they do bad things, and therefore violence is okay. It's only ever justified if you say that they are irrational and innately bad. Otherwise, it's only understanding. If we go to all those traditions and replace, hey, you have sin because you're innately bad and need to be murdered, or, you know, what did the Catholic Church and the Nazis do? Murder, genocide, take all the stuff. No. All of those times that happened, millions of times probably that's happened, we go back and say, hey, you know what? Read this. Read what Socrates said here. The reason that you have a problem is not that you are innately bad and need to be murdered or tortured. It's because of a lack of phronesis. Therefore, we are spending our entire military budget to create the conditions for phronesis. Because you're only missing the mark because of a lack of phronesis. That's it. You might even have good qualities like health and wealth and strength, or good qualities of the soul. You may be a really courageous leader or a really courageous soldier. But if you do not also have phronesis, you are going to miss the mark. So every time anyone does anything bad, we have to ask the question, how do we get some phronesis in there? Use our entire military budget to create these kinds of schools and to make sure all human physical needs are met, so we're not motivated by meeting physical needs. Because physical needs do not lead to phronesis. They are physical. They are things we have to get out of the way while we do the real work of the immortality of the soul, knowledge, awakening our memory, reaching our final form, the good daemon. If you are struggling to meet your physical needs, you may think the whole world is about struggling to meet your physical needs, so I want to be a billionaire, so screw everyone over, like every conservative or capitalist thinks. Screw everyone. Let them suffer and die. Let them drink plastic. Let the forests burn their houses down. I want to make money so I can have a nice meal. Physical needs. Bollocks to that. Bollocks to all that. Why? Because the problems are caused by a lack of phronesis, not physical things or innate badness of individuals. The disease, dis-ease, a Latin prefix meaning apart. Interesting. Away, utterly, having a privileged negative. Words are funny. Yes. By unpacking the parts of the words, we can point to the original meaning that has often been, thumbs up, mistranslated for the pathologos reasons of oppression and subjugation by authority figures. Galileo wrote, Galileo who had to write in the introduction of his book, by the way, all this stuff that happens to be true about the sun being the center of the galaxy, the solar system, it's just mathematical. It's just hypothetical. Pope. So the Pope, someone in charge of beliefs, who teaches sin, doesn't murder a genius like Galileo. This is what happens without phronesis, or having systems where people without phronesis are in charge. So what? Okay, so that's the cause of problems. Every time you say, hey, let's spend $100 on our military budget. No. First spend $100 on creating the conditions for phronesis. Making sure everyone in that country has all of their physical needs met. It's not hard. It's not complicated. It's very easy. What do you need? House, food, shelter, a park to socialize in. Bing, bang, boom. Done. No profiteering off shelter. No profiteering of food. No profiteering of healthcare. Profiteering means I'm going to waste half of the food so I can earn more money. How about feed the world? No money. Making healthcare something you can profit on means I want people to starve and die. Hey, Luigi Mangione, or whatever his name was, went after that American CEO of the healthcare company. Because more people dying means more money for me. It's stupid. Billionaires could end world hunger. Right, that's right, they could. Why don't they? Why are they missing the mark? Easy. They don't have phronesis. Their wealth, what were the qualities that are normal, that could be beneficial or harmful? The health, beauty, strength or wealth, there we go, is not good or bad, but can do harm or can benefit depending on whether it's guided by phronesis in coordination with nous. So what? All right, so we understand the cause of problems. What's the cause of problems? Absence of phronesis. Okay, so how do we fix it? What do we want? What's the positive? Yes, in the chat. What's the point of gaining the world but contributing nothing to it? Reminds me of a story of Buddha. Right. What's the point of reaching the final goal or your purpose and meaning of life if it does not also function beneficially? That's the question, which is why this functioning beneficially has been tied to virtue or excellence of the soul, and also why it ends in being a good daemon, who is perhaps the highest, the archetype, the ideal of functioning in a beneficial way. And how do you function in a beneficial way? You need phronesis. Without phronesis, you miss the mark. What do we want? Good phronesis. The good phronesis soul guides correctly. Now, does that mean that there is a good, a u-phron, and a kaka-phron? Is there a version of a bad phronesis? I've never seen it. I've seen the kaka daemon. I haven't seen the kaka phronesis. This is actually the first time I've actually seen good as a prefix in front of phronesis. I've never seen phronesis. I've seen mega phronesis, megalophronesis. At the beginning of the Alcibiades, he says, Alcibiades, says Socrates, I've been watching you for a while because I recognize an innate quality of phronesis within you. But it's so strong that people who have tried to court you, even the ones who themselves have a lot of phronesis. In fact, some people trying to befriend you or make you their lover or whatever, they have had megalophronesis. But your ultraphronesis has been so intimidating that it put even megalophronesis people off. I've seen that. Haven't seen good phronesis before. What does that mean? We've got phronesis and aphronesis, the absence of it. But if we've got good phronesis, right, we've got phronesis and, here we go, look, aphronesis, the mindless, not mindless, because it's self. The lack of the state of being of self, or the lack of phronesis harms, but, so here we have aphronesis, the opposite of phronesis. But if we've got good phronesis, what's the opposite of good phronesis? Kaka phronesis, just like good daemon and bad daemon. Never seen it before. What does it mean? Hopefully he will give us an example of kaka phron, bad phronesis. Now, we have posited that they have been using the word aphronesis, absence of phronesis, to say phronesis isn't there, but we would say, okay, but there still has to be something there guiding you. That's the pathologos. We're bringing that in from our reading of midwifery. Would the pathologos also be the kakaphron? The bad phronesis? Kakaphron? I don't know. Nevertheless, we have a conclusion. If the good phronesis guides the soul correctly, if your soul guides through good phronesis, you will be guided correctly, which will end up at the end of everything you do. You don't have to know what's going to happen. You can be open. In fact, you're supposed to be open and curious and puzzled. That's aporia. That was the whole conversation about being stung right before this. So you're supposed to not know, like playing a game. You don't know what's going to happen, but it's fun. Everything you do can be in that state of wonder and curiosity and fun, because you know that everything you go through will end up in you eventually being your highest state of happiness, your highest state of functioning, the good daemon. provided everything you do that's that word there. My page isn't moving. Let's reset it. Sometimes my page gets stuck. There it is. It's going again. Hooray. Right, so everything that the soul attempts or endures ends in reaching the good daemon. Whereas if you are not led by phronesis, everything ends in the opposite way. So that's very much the path of logos, right? You will be a kaka daemon. That same internal voice that tells you that self is bad, reality is bad, logos and understanding is bad. The three things that we are here to discover are the opposite. That kaka daemon voice is how you function towards others. You will be looking for someone to make a mistake so you can crush them. You think it's superior. That's why people love drama on YouTube. That's why a philosophy debate will get 1 million more views than this video will. People are zombified by the pathologos virus, you could say. Ending up in you being the pathologos. The words and language you use and the way you treat people is the same way you were treated when you were crushed, because you think that's knowing and wise and good. You think that's the goal. If you didn't think it was wise, knowing, and good, you wouldn't believe it, so it wouldn't affect you when you hear it or you hear it within your mind. You think it's real. You think it's your height. It's fate. Everything in your life is moving to an area where you end in the opposite way of good daemon, the opposite way. You end as a kaka daemon. You become identified with your pathologos, which causes suffering to you, anyone who listens to you, and will cause negative consequences in your afterlife according to the Phaedo. Therefore, everyone has a moral imperative to spend their life seeking and removing their pathologos. Everyone. And then you are free from the fate. You are a zombie looking to eat as much brains as you can, only you're not eating brains. You are crushing the development of selves. So imagine the punishment in the afterlife for that, if there is some sort of punishment. Maybe punishment is the wrong word. Nevertheless, you've got a job to do that, which is why we read midwifery book every second day. But also, it frees you to find your true purpose, your true nature. If you are not this kaka daemon, this negative person who just inflicts negativity, clip chimps, looks for mistakes so you can crush people. You stop being a jerk, you're free to find out what's the best you can be, what's the ultimate, what's the most caring, what's the most intelligible, what's the most beneficial. The good daemon. So it fits. If we are motivated by and guided by phronesis in everything we do, we can relax, we can have fun, we can sit back and enjoy the whole show because we know it's going to end in us. Well, we don't know. We suspect from our reading here that it will end in a good daemon. If we don't, we will end up as the opposite. What's the opposite of good daemon? Bad daemon, kaka daemon. What's that? The pathologos voice. What do we end up being? An embodiment of the pathologos. If we do that our whole lives, what does it do? It kills us. You start to get sick based on your pathologos. You start to see it in your face. There's a reason why evil people like I don't know. Think of some evil billionaire who owns all the media or owns all the politicians. Look at their face. Look at their body. It kills you. It harms you. And your soul. So, if you are led by a phronesis, it ends in the opposite way. Instead of a lack of phronesis, we are saying you are led by your pathologos. Fits. Here, we have, just as we have a good daemon and the opposite way, the bad daemon, we have a good phronesis guiding the soul correctly, or an aphronesis missing the mark. Now this is interesting, because here it would suggest that aphronesis is the opposite of phronesis, but that wasn't how it was used prior. So maybe, because aphronesis is the opposite, or is the pointing to the absence of phronesis. But here we have a good phronesis, that would imply a bad one. Can we therefore, if we say the ideal functioning where we will end because we're happy and having fun and curious about this game, because everything we do, we're seeking the true self of phronesis, so that's how to live. If that ends up in a way of being called phronesis, which functions as a good daemon, then we have the opposite of the functioning, the bad daemon, being a pathologos model, inflicting the pathologos injustice on others, infecting other souls with that pathologos ignorance, or institutions, or jobs, or humanity. If the functioning result from phronesis is good daemon, bad daemon functioning is the pathologos, can we therefore say, let's put it on the board. Okay, so we have the state. Let's zoom in a little bit more. State of being. Let's check in with the chat. Interesting way to look. Oh, here we go. Right, so there's an A without, doesn't mean there's an opposite, but yes, you got it. Arrhythmia without rhythm instead of having opposite to rhythm. Yeah, well done. It's an interesting way to look at things. So we might say uncoordinated. Oh, see, even uncoordinated is an absence of coordination. You'd have to find a word that would positively describe what is there. We have the opposite of bad in English, which is good. Opposite of good is bad, but they are like no opposites without a certain quality. Yeah. Made me realize how accusatory modern English is and blaming it is. So we've got a state of being. Oh, let's put a circle. And it's distortion. Okay, we've got phronesis. That gives a functioning by the way. We've got to keep in mind everything we do, we're trying to do the dialectic. That's the process of learning. So we can also say definition. First carry the dialectic. Then, after you've defined whatever it is you want to understand or define, how does it demonstrate or function? Demonstration. We have got the functioning of the state of being of phronesis is good daemon. And therefore, by the way, this is a fantastic illustration of, if you haven't quite yet figured out how do we read, what's this new way of reading, or what's this activity, the intellectual activity, the activity of understanding, the activity of defining, the activity of being a good communicator, but also this spiritual activity, the purpose of our life. If all of these things we've been talking about are things that follow the mastery of the art of the dialectic, how do I read with this dialectic? How do I think with this dialectic? How do I get these things? This is a fantastic illustration of that. We look for patterns and key terms. We've got key terms. They couldn't be more clear that phronesis is a key term. It's the necessary key term for how to act in a virtuous way. We want excellence or virtue. You need phronesis. We've nailed it. It's a key term. Pull it out. Write it down. In the chat, if we ever said instead waging war, waging a time without peace and without rest, I wonder, good point. Yes, war word triggers a lot of fear and emotions and stuff, a lot of nationalism, absolutely. And we have the same problem with philosophy. we can say, well, God, self is God. The state of being of self is you, but it's also God. But you don't want to use the word God. It's tied up with crusades and genocides and sexual abuse and embezzlement of money and stealing of money from poor people and funding Donald Trump and all this sort of shit that's tied with the idea of God. So we don't want to use the word God for that reason. So in that sense, the fact that ideas like phronesis don't have an English equivalent means it's clear and free. It's free from all of these negative associations, so we're free to use it the way it's supposed to be used, which is neat. So you pull out the key terms and then you arrange them. We've got this ideal way of functioning of the good daemon that we said, hey, at the end of everything we do, we'll end up here, provided we're guided by this, which is a way of functioning. So connect the key terms together. So pull out the key terms, write them down, and try and connect them. Also, use the paradigm of the dialectic. What's that? It's very, very easy. Here it is. Dialectic. This is it here. What have we got? Whoops. Two terms. What are the two terms? Self and other. We'll start off with one. The title, if X. For us, we are saying if benefit or if virtue. Then it either exists or it doesn't exist. Create a universe if it does, create a universe if it doesn't. That's the dialectic. How many parts of the universe? Only 4. The thing itself, give it a definition. How does it function? So that's self itself. Again, 2. So 1 topic, if X. Topic, your understanding, doing the dialectic on. Virtue, if virtue exists. That's the self and other. 2 ideas. The thing itself and something else. So, self according to itself, definition. What would you say about it? How would you define it? Number 2, how does it function? This self you've just defined, how does it function? Definition. Having been affected by that function, how do those others then go out and do other things? Others to different others. And then finally, from those, that's division. And finally, from those others, can you unify that? Can you find a key term or a causal term that brings us into a single other? That's synthesis. And then can you take that single other and apply it back to our definition at the start? Whoops. Hang on. Apply it back to the definition at the start. That's analysis. The 2 together is conclusion. Synthesis and analysis. It's 4 stages. So, definition. Phronesis. Oh, so use this and try and apply it wherever you can. Like right now, we've got some key terms. Can we look for these categories? Can we look for these categories? Can we see a positive and a minus, or it does exist or it doesn't exist? Can we look to arrange those key terms in thinking according to these categories within each of those 2 headings? That's the game. Think that way, talk that way, relate that way, have coffee with your friends, and try and do this with the topics, the X's that are most important to you. And hopefully, if you've been reading along, one of, if not the most important X to you should be phronesis. It's a necessary element in virtue. It's necessary to be good and beneficial to yourself and others. So it's what we're after. Phronesis. What is it? Okay, so we pulled out the key term phronesis. And we've got another key term, aphronesis. Oh, positive and negative. We're doing it. We're looking for a positive and negative. You can say this is the negative, this is a positive. Oh, I can see how I would put them into that table of the dialectic. Interesting. Oh, this is a state of being. Oh, wait a minute. State of being, does that fit as a definition? Positive and negative. Look for that. But also look for the DDAC. Definition, demonstration, division, conclusion. Or DDDAS. Definition, demonstration, division, analysis, and synthesis. Could we say a state of being is our definition? How we function from that state of being, does that fit demonstration? Could this be the self itself and demonstration self to others? Is that what functioning is? Yep. Is this what state of being is? I don't know. Is phronesis self according to self? Actually, holy shit. Now, normally we would say self in relation to itself, meaning the subject. Like if we wanted to do a dialectic on beauty, what would you say about beauty itself? Beauty, self, in relation to itself. Oh, and then how does beautiful things function and so on and so on. But here is weird because the state of being of phronesis is literally the state of the self at the end of our philosophical journey, recognizing the self. So it's the self in a perpetual state of virtue of recognition of the self. Phronesis seems to therefore be the archetype and model of the dialectic. So the state of being in the first hypothesis, oneself, is inherently, in its nature, the first category of the dialectic. So we can imagine or hypothesize from this state of being oneself. If it's self knowing self, it's literally the first category of the dialectic. And if all unfolding into reality and into the physical world and into other systems like geometry and music and how planets move, if everything is a extension of the dialectic, we could maybe see the dialectic inherent in the nature of phronesis, of self in relation to self, the state of virtue of ourselves knowing and being for always. No, it's not temporary like an experience of being. No, a state of being of self in relation to self. That seems to be as good a definition as I've ever seen or I've ever come up with or imagined. Again, it's a hypothesis. If it's your question, carry it with you as a question, but also carry a hypothesis. Remember, we have two sacks. We have a question sack that we carry with us as an adventurer on the archetype of the hero's journey, the meaning of life. We have our question sack and we have our hypothesis sack. One of the questions is, what the heck is phronesis? And another question is, how, if everything is the dialectic, how does that exist at the top? Well, here's a hypothesis that we can carry as we solve that as an adventurer in an open, curious, puzzled, wondering, stung state of mind called aporia, as we reflect on ourselves, ousia, seeking excellence, but also seeking truth, looking for patterns of things to put in our skill trees. And here we have a 4 in the dialectic with a title at the top, making it 5. Look for patterns. One of those patterns is, well, perhaps the archetype of the pattern is the dialectic. So what? So that's what we are trying to overlay on our reading in order to read in this new kind of way, different from the pathologos way of reading that we learn at school, which is interpretation. Just like, hey, you don't like the idea of hamartia the way Socrates said it? Make it about sin. Yeah, justify, you're rich and you have control over the people because you own the church. Just Make the word mean whatever you want. Right, Elon? Right, Donald Trump? No, that's interpretation. What we are learning how to do is read, which requires taking this and seeing if we can look for places where we can apply this table of the dialectic. There it is. And what are we doing? Looking at the key terms. Again, the dialectic won't be beneficial if you're not using this to, I don't know, win in crypto. No, you're using this to know and be and function through the self. Self itself applied to the self. And if you're not doing that, then you're not motivated and guided by phronesis, and you're doing harm. Even if you have all the beauty in the world, all the money in the world, you have to be motivated by phronesis, is what we're reading. So we're doing that now. In order to understand what the heck is phronesis, we are taking that overlay of understanding, the overlay of the archetype, the overlay of the paradigm, the dialectic table, and applying it here. We've already seen we can call state of being definition, that fits. Function, I think. It fits in a unique way I've never seen before. It's literally, phronesis is self to self. Anyway, definition. Self to others, or functioning. That allows us to recognize there is a puzzle. We're hunting for puzzle. That's why back in, we had we are a wizard on the hero's journey. It's a picture of a woman. There's a reason why Athena, the goddess of wisdom, was a goddess. So we'll put a woman there. But we're also a Sherlock Holmes with our deerstalker hat and our pipe. This is the Sherlock Holmes part. We've found a puzzle. So we've seen that we have asked the question, what would therefore be the opposite of this? Opposite is not the absence. Bad daemon. That's our hypothesis. So now we've got self to self. Self to others, the functioning as a bad daemon, others to others. What would it be like if we functioned as a bad daemon? Because we want to see if this hypothesis is working. Do people who do not have phronesis use whatever wealth and power and beauty they have, and even characteristics of the soul, whatever force and courage they have, to act out their pathologos, to push their pathologos, bad daemon functioning, on other people? And if they are unfortunate enough to be born into that person's family, or have that person as a boss or a leader of the country or whatever, do these others come together to that same state of being? Are other people infected by the pathologos that is inherited through generations? Yes. And does that... Oh, and by the way, people in this chain, they end up like this. They end up as the bad daemon. Do they then go back and say, see, it is true. The Palestinians are less than human. Look at them trying to fight back while we murder and rape their children, says the Israeli army. Look at us murder their whole family. Look at them shouting obscenities. Oh, very uncouth. Proves our original assessment that they were sinners to begin with. Clip chimping is the internet version. You could say it slip chimping. Looking for slips as a way to define someone as a monkey so you can abuse them. In other words, the conclusion comes back to the original definition, giving you a new, greater understanding. Now, if it's false, if it's the bad daemon, you go back to the beginning and you haven't learnt jack. It's stagnant. It's stagnant. You can't get out of it. That's why it's fate. That's why you keep repeating the same problems. That's why it's the human problem that we are here to address. In the truth, If it's applied to the positive, this return back to the beginning allows you to return having gained. You return home from the hero's journey with the elixir. You return to these subjects with a deeper understanding of that thing you first defined. So it spirals upwards. It's growth. It's not stagnation. You've gotten rid of the stagnated swamp, and now you have a water park with a water slide that flies up to heaven. That's the difference. So does it fit? Yes. This hypothesis that the functioning, that's the opposite, the negative version of the positive, which is what you fill in yourself with the dialectic, would be the kakadaemon. We actually have that word, kakadaemon, which functions in the way that we just described when applying the dialectic to it. Neat. Hooray. Dance. Dance, chicken, dance, chicken. Dance, chicken, dance, chicken, dance, chicken, dance, chicken. They're so happy. All right. Hang on a second. It seems he's been using a placeholder for the negative version of phronesis. Aphronesis isn't the opposite of phronesis. Therefore, if we are to fill out this within our dialectic, we have found another puzzle. Can't use the word aphronesis, another puzzle. So let's take it out of the circle. Because aphronesis means absence of phronesis. So we'll say aphronesis. Question mark? What goes in there? Well, now we've been given this clue of the good phronesis. Would that imply that there is such a thing as a bad phronesis? So our question is, what is the state of being or definition of cacaphron or bad phronesis? That would be the opposite to good phronesis, as we found in the bad daemon, opposite of the good daemon. Well, our hypothesis that we've been playing with our Sherlock Holmes cap on, is this is the bad daemons, the pathologos, the functioning of the pathologos, either within your mind as a voice or when you project onto people and get mad at them. You probably think this, oh, damn women, women aren't to be trusted. Hang on a second. Isn't that exactly what your dad said to you when you were 5 and you opened up and he shared something he never talked, but he said women aren't to be trusted? Aren't you doing the same thing? Aren't you trying to infect your particular zombie virus onto others to keep them trapped in flight? Mostly people won't believe you unless they're young, or it's similar enough to their bullshit. Similar enough to their false idea of reality and self. So, if that theory pans out here, would it therefore mean ... What state of being is somebody in when they're functioning as a bad daemon? Pathologos? Pathologos, way of being? Pathologos, state of mind? Pathologos, state of mind results in pathologos functioning. Does it fit? Don't know, but we're carrying it. It's at least a question. Seems to fit to me. Well, let's carry it. So, if The good daemon soul. Oh, so interesting. Good daemon soul. So it is a way of being of the soul. The good daemon soul guides correctly, whereas the aphron, pathologos, soul misses the mark. Is that true? Absolutely it is. Is it a puzzle Socrates is leaving us? Maybe. Let's keep reading. Surely then, do we not say, let's drink some coffee. Do we not say that it is in this way in every case, so that for human beings, on one hand, everything depends on the soul, whereas the virtues of the soul depend on phronesis, if they intend to be good. Everything you do is based on your soul. So what is he saying? He's confirming our hypothesis. Everything you do in your functioning depends on the soul's way of being. And everything done by the good phronesis results in eudaimonia, good state functioning and divine happiness. Everything. Right, so everything of our functioning as a person depends on our soul way of being, and our soul's way of being, whether or not we have virtue, depends on whether or not we're guided by phronesis. So everything, for human beings, everything depends on your soul. But in terms of your soul, its excellence or virtue depends on phronesis, if you intend to be good. By this logos, that which is beneficial will be phronesis. So, if virtue is to be your most excellent, and therefore to be your most excellent has to also be functioning that way, which means benefiting. If virtue is benefit, and benefit requires phronesis, therefore virtue is phronesis. End of the book. We've still got half of a book to read. We're 30 pages in of 50 pages. We're 30% in. No, 60% through. But I thought we just finished. We've got to figure out if it's true. Do we, and how do we learn it? So do we declare virtue to be beneficial? Very much so. Accordingly then, do we declare virtue to be either wholly or in part phronesis? Yes. Well spoken. So, not quite there yet. Is virtue the same as phronesis, or is it part of it? And how do we get there? Because one of the questions is, hang on a second, is it learnable? Because learning is remembering. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you so much. We've got a lot. We've seen a lot. I think we're more keyed in to our purpose as human beings who are alive. Phronesis. Also, we can add, you might want to get rid of the pathologos and kaka daemon or bad daemon functioning as well. But everything we do needs to be in service of phronesis, and if we ever reach phronesis, stay in it and always function through it, says Socrates. And Meno agrees. Is that the whole of virtue, or is there more to it? What happened to aporia? We talked about that a lot. What happened to the dialectic? That's a big one. How is this all related? In other words, if phronesis is necessary, but number one, is there more? And number two, how do we learn it? And number three, is it something we learn in the same way we learn about being? We practice the dialectic either ourselves with friends on a topic that is an aspect of being to facilitate the nous or the apprehension of it, which is the movement through the dialectic into mind itself, which is learning. That's learning, which is remembering. If it wasn't within your soul to begin with, you wouldn't be able to remember it. If that's learning, again, providence, most care, using the self-logos masterfully with the dialectic to apprehend the realm of being That's something you can know for certain. That's immortal. That's mind knowing itself. There's nothing outside it, so it's all oneness, mind completely knowing itself. That's learning, which is remembering through the dialectic. Is that how we learn virtue? Because phronesis seems to be up here. So how do we get it? So, basically 2 questions. How is phronesis is necessary for benefit and virtue and our purpose to be a good daemon? Is there more to virtue than just phronesis? Number 1. And number 2, how do we get it if everything else in philosophy is gotten through dialectic to remember? Because that's the rememberable or knowable experience. How do we get that? 2 questions. What is it? Definition. And number 2, how do we get there? But really cool and neat to know that there is a purpose and meaning and focus to life at all times and should be functioned through at all times. And it's about the self. You don't have to believe anyone or wear any masks. It's specifically the absence of masks, giving us the meaning of life that we do every second day, which is removing those masks by understanding what they're here for so that we can see through them and remove it as the guide. Midwifery, doing that tomorrow. Hope you join me. While also asking those 2 questions that we are asking today. What the heck is phronesis? How do we get it? And is there anything more involved? 3 questions. What the heck is phronesis? How do we get it? And is there anything more involved in virtue or the meaning of life other than that? Let's hope. Is there anything more involved in our excellence other than phronesis? How do we reach phronesis? How do we maintain phronesis? Yeah, because if it just finished here, accordingly then we declare virtue to be phronesis. Well, okay, now we know our single purpose that we can aim for. Wholly or a certain part. What does that do to the question? Hopefully it gives us more to wonder about. Add it to the list of wonders. Add it to the list of things to carry with you through your day, to talk to your friends over coffee about. Add it to the things to have aporia about. And add it to the questions that we carry as we read and practice the dialectic. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the chat. Thank you for a lot of the questions and the thoughts and the comments in the chat. If you want to join the chat, you can join on Twitch or YouTube. You can subscribe for free on Discord. You'll get a notification when we go live. And I hope to see you wondering wonders next time. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye. That's how they wave goodbye. See, his hands up and his wings up there. They're waving. Bye.